broadcasting this great city. And the wall is very tall. It's about 40 meters high. It's a huge stone wall. And behind me, you can see I'd like to interview Mr. Zhang Chun, the historian of this great city. Greetings, everyone. Just as you said, in Jerusalem, we can see so many huge stones. Well, at Jerusalem, at the old city, and behind the old city, this is a huge building, and it is the Holy of the Holies. To Jews and to the Arab people, these buildings are very important. We can help the stone. If we recover the stone, there are many stories in it. This is at the old city of Jerusalem. You can see that the old building is the Holy of the Holies. To Jews and to Arab people, the buildings behind are very important. And they have many stories. I'd like to ask you a question. It is my first time to come here. I'd like to ask you one question, and I have found that the stones at the bottom level are huge, are bigger. and it's at the center of Moriah Mountain. When the Romans decided to destroy the palace, they used huge stones to burn, and they burned them. They were originally located at the Temple Mount. You can see they used the huge stones to destroy the palace, and there are many pits here. And the Romans in 76 BC used the huge stones to make those pits, which is very professional. I'd like to have a close look. So look at the ground surface. It has been knocked inside, and it's very hard. But the huge stones has caused the pit. The upper part has a history of about 2,000 years. They're made of big bricks. After that, Jews had to depart, right? And after the departure, Romans had an appointment. So, which is also the origin of Palestine. So, what is the origin of the name Palestine? After this palace was destroyed, Jews were brought to Rome, and in Jerusalem, the surrounding areas of villages, some Jews also lived here until 315 BC. There was another uprising by the Jews, and the Roman emperor was Hadrian. And after the quelling of this uprising, Hadrian no longer allowed the Jews to live in old cities. They did not allow them to enter the city since 63 BC, when Rome ruled this area. It was called the province of Judea. And Hadrian, after quelling the uprising, he combined the area with the surrounding provinces, and so it is called Palestine. Jews always called it Jerusalem, and since that event, Romans do not allow them to use the name of Jerusalem. You can see that the Romans have decided the name. And since then, the Jews began the diaspora. We know that the professor has told us the origin of Palestine. It appeared in a historical event. You can see that the stones have a history of about 2,000 years. I can feel that it has a touch of history. 2,000 years ago, here are streets, and people are hustling and bustling. And I'm by the old relic, which has a history of about 2,000 years. So when Palestine, the name appeared, Mr. Zhao just also said that when the name of the Palestine appeared, it signaled that the Jews began their diaspora. They were forced to leave this place. And it is familiar to us. It is called the diaspora. With time going by, new times kept emerging. So Jerusalem has witnessed the most times of the conflict since the time of recording. During one ruling, there was such an event. A new empire arrived here, which had a huge impact on this place. Now let's hear from Ms. Zhang. Which empire arrived here? This is the Temple Mount, the Haram esh-Sharif. The Arabian people in early times. It is about 638 BC, about 700, the Arabian people arrived here. And they are the ethnic minorities here. In 7th century BC, the Arabian people established many dynasties. They are called Umayyad. They have also left their traces here.
So if you look up to the wall, you can see above like 2 meters or even higher. So let's count to the above would be a stones in white colors. You can see that the stone is 40 centimeters by 40 centimeters. That actually is built up in the Umayyad period, as after Arabian people arrived here. Stone actually has the longest duration. So the first team that were built the foundation. So you can see the bottom ones. The stones they used were in bigger size. And you can see on the stones right now there are many the records left by the history. And the whole Temple Mount actually is considered as Mount of the Houses of God, or known for Muslims as the Noble Sanctuary. And you can see the way they build up the whole Temple Mount also quite different. For the upper levels or the upper layers, they use a different way to accumulate the stones. So you can see, I give you an imagination, the comparison. If I open my arm, this is how wide per stone. This is the accumulation of stones and also accumulation of history. So the stone actually is a 40 centimeter by 40 centimeter, and it's very heavy actually. Per stone, the weight is 1 ton or 2 tons. This is for the later stage of construction. For the previous one, per stone, it was around 5 tons per weight. But they use the very smart tools to help them. Like they have the rollings under the leveraging tools to help them to lay one layer by another. And this is a solid wall. So we always talk about like normally the whole as they want to separate to different or many different other areas. Actually, the Temple Mount need a platform. Right now we're at the south side of the Temple Mount. So it's higher at the north flank and lower at the south flank. So during the Arab ruling, they built the Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Dome of the Rock. And the mosque actually was rebuilt recently, so it looks quite refresh. And this is actually the key areas at the old city of Jerusalem. And the surrounding areas around the Temple Mount. The Turkey Empire actually also ruled this area before, and more and more people start to gather and reside in the old city of Jerusalem. And so by then, the whole territory of the old city of Jerusalem actually was fixed. So let's talk about during the Ottoman Empire. So that's during that period of Ottoman Empire. So at the later stage of this empire, whether people, the Jews, allowed to come back. Actually, at the beginning, Muslims actually were not allowed to buy any housing or land, and they started to allow the non-Muslims to buy the land. So the Jews, by the end of the 19th century, they started to came back to the Jerusalem. So we talk about by then people live in Jerusalem. Actually, they live in this area. And they also established the first place for Jews to live, and that's just during the time, the period of Ottoman Empire. and also they were allowed to buy lands because they were non-Muslims. So start by then, we were witnessed several waves of returning back, so that the Jews return back to the Jerusalem. So right now we are standing at the southern part of Al-Aqsa Mosque, and you can see the gray top. We're at the south part of the mosque. Let's continue to climbing to the top, and we will explain to you the whole structure of the Temple Mount. And we are, I believe, at a higher place. I believe we are climbing to a top, so it can give you a larger and a better view. And this is not the final terrace or the platform, but we can see a quite higher view. This is at the southern areas, and hope you can see this is the wall for the city. I believe this is the actual walls, right, for Jerusalem. Yes. So at the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire started to rule the area. They actually rebuilt the areas based on the original size of Jerusalem, which was less than 1 square kilometers. So there you can see the part of the walls of for the city, and I believe this is also one of the historical sites. We mentioned right now until the 1917. That's a powerful declaration happened during that time period. It's very important in history because it remarked that the Jews were allowed to come back to Jerusalem, although it's only 67 words in English for this declaration. It's not just mentioned that it's allowed Jews to come back to establish their country. It also mentioned in the declaration. So we believe by then we witnessed that more than 100,000 people came back, as also caused some social instability. So the ruling people said it's really hard for them to control the area, so they appealed to the United Nations, and then we can see at the United Nations we have the resolution, and we say we should separate the Israel and Palestine and the establishment of Israeli country, and we see the war happened. That's all happened after the declaration. So we see the first, second, and the third Middle East wars. And for the third war was a very famous one, and starts from the third war. The Israelis started to rule the whole area. So actually, this area ruled by different empire and different ruling country. So let's put in the plain language. for China, we experience the Tang dynasty, different dynasties, and here, actually, the Jerusalem also experienced different dynasties. I think that's the way to explain in this comparison, so the people, our viewers, can make a better understanding. I believe actually the land is still there. The size of the land actually not really changed.
Two nations differ in their religion, background, and historical origins. So the reason of the conflict emerged, and the conflicts become ever more serious. Jews' history and the Arab history are mingled. In modern times, these two peoples live here. If they live with the same habits, there will be no conflicts. They have conflicts because they differ in historical background, religions, and living habits. Thank you, thank you. You have given a very detailed explanation. Here, I would like to interview this lady. Just now, Miss Darling has told us her experience. She was born here in Jerusalem, and she came here to witness the mosque, and she had heard the sound from the Muslims, and she felt a touch to it, a connection to it, and the historical relics are her ancestors. So her ancestors built the wall, the mosque, and she felt she was deeply connected. She said she came here for the first time when she was young. A generation as old as her grandfather witnessed the old walls, and she witnessed this wall and she felt deeply touched. Next, I want to interview Raya from Israel.
Hi everybody, my name is Raya. I'm living in Israel for almost 12 years. Originally I came from Israel, from Italia. But it's been that I came up to Israel. You know, Aliyah is something to go up in Jerusalem. When we are going to the Jerusalem, we are going up to the Jerusalem. Jerusalem is behind Jerusalem.
Roya had her explanation. And her explanation brought us to the next topic, and we'll invite Ms. Zhang to have a discussion about this place. She said she wanted to return to Jerusalem. She wanted to live here. After the explanation of Roya, do you have any comments? She has seen it for several times, but she still felt that she was deeply connected to it. Any person's ancestors, parents, or grandparents who told them whom they are and where are they from. So for Jews, their father generation will never forget the Jerusalem. Just now you mentioned Ariya. It means upward. So for Jews who live overseas, they return to a great city. They move upward to a position and they follow such a position. They found such a route. I cannot think of appropriate word, including in their marriage. They will make a position and say that they will meet at Jerusalem. Jerusalem, in their customs, in their cultures, are often heard. And it is a great connection to them. So Jerusalem will never forget Jerusalem. I'd like to make a summary here. Just now, Roya and Miss Barling had a speech here, and they have felt they have a deep touch to it, and they felt they have the great love for this land. And Miss Darling obviously felt that the buildings are directly connected to their ancestors. It is obvious. Miss Roya also said the stones, after the excavation and archaeological findings, said that the stones belong to their ancestors. Their ancestors once lived here, which is indisputable. Just now, Miss Roya, Miss Darling, and Miss Zhang said that the Jerusalem is a center for culture and history. Many countries converged here, especially some big empires, and their heydays once were also spent here, and it is one of the world centers, so the great empires left their footprints here. When it comes to Jerusalem, Arabian people would say, Akuz. In Arabian, Jerusalem is Al-Quds. Actually, in old times, Jerusalem means the old city, and there are no surrounding areas. Al-Quds is the saint city. Thank you so much. Miss Darling just said that the saint means important, extremely important. So Miss Darling said this old city is very important for Roya. For Jews, this place is very important. When she was young, the parents that it was an important place. So just because of its importance, this place is charming and beautiful. Now, we'd like to interview another guest. Just now you follow our live streaming until now. You came here for visits, right? As a first comer, though we are not locals, so how do you feel about this place? First, I'm not a religious person, but I believe it is shocking to me. It's very beautiful, though there are debris. You can feel a long history, and it is easy for you to imagine the old times. You want to go back to old times to see what was here. So because the buildings are mingled, are mixed, this place has a great touch of history, and you will feel that the mingled, the mixed state gives it charm, right? Because of its mixed state. It means that the people have different religions, and the direct feeling is that it will give you a room for imagination. Thank you so much. Just now, Miss Yu has brought us to the end of this live streaming because our time is limited, and its charm is in its culture, history, and lies in its mixed state. Here, I would like to talk about a modern thing, which is the capital issue of Jerusalem. After 6 or 7 years, Israel controls this place. Currently, the international community and various parties have shown and have expressed that the Jerusalem status should be settled through peaceful negotiation between Palestine and Israel. So this live streaming wants to give you a direct feeling towards Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Every conflict has a reason why the conflict is so frequent in this place, because both parties do not concede. The reason is that the holy place is a very good example, and it is built here. To both sides, they think the place is very important to both of them, and the blend of history and culture has brought us its charm, and it is so important. As a third party, we believe that should it be separated, and should they share them, or should they have an agreement? So the question is left to you. And do you feel the current state is better, or should there be any improvement? And this is the end of the live streaming. And Ms. Zhang at last will give a summary of our live streaming. As a witness of this historical relic, what's your feeling towards it? When I looked at the stones, I know that the stones cannot talk, but we can talk. When I looked at the stone, I believe that the different ethnic groups have left histories here, and I was deeply touched within. I hope that the stones may stay here stably, and it will forge a home and hearth to both nations, and it will bring peace to both nations. I also hope this place can be peaceful. And at last, I would also like to interview the Palestinian residents Araya. Hi.
both people message. I mean, Israelis and Palestinians would like for sure live in peace and security, but we have to find the way. This is what I think.
Okay. So, Raya, do you agree with that?
For sure, yeah. I want peace to come. It's quite a difficult question, how and which option we will. It's not something that me and Doreen could really decide, but for sure we want to be in peace.
然后刚刚呢，let me just a little bit translate and say okay. 刚刚达琳女士还有瑞亚女士都在分享他们对和平的一种愿
We
景。
see our two guests today all express their wish for peace. Peace is the most important word here. They all want to coexist in peace.
Stay in Jerusalem. Yeah, I don't want to move.
Stay in Jerusalem, stay in peace.
都住在耶路撒冷，他们也希望他们以后也就这样和平地住在耶路
These
撒冷。
two ladies, they all right now live in Jerusalem.
这些问题这些都非常的敏感。
We talk about the wars, the conflicts, actually are all very sensitive topics. We know actually right now we want the international communities and all related countries to sit together to find a way for peaceful reconciliation. No matter in which way, in the end, we want to remain the history of Jerusalem. We want to still witness and see the beauty, see the charm of the history in this city, in this area, because at here you will have a new source of your lives, I believe. So what?
这个穆斯林这个礼拜声音响起，那我们本想
We can see the sound here, and this is also come to the end of our live streaming, and you can see the very beautiful sky and the mount, Temple Mount, and the very beautiful historical scenes, and wish you have a nice day. And this come to the end of our live streaming. Thank you very much, and please keep tuning in CCTV and CGTN. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.